On my wedding day, while I was getting my makeup done, I looked out the window and saw my sister standing at the gate in a white dress. She was shouting something at the security guard, and my mom was standing next to her, silently watching. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just a wedding anymore. I was born in California, the older of identical twins, but we were different in every possible way. Since we were little, I was the reserved one, while Olivia, my sister, always craved attention. No one expected those differences to show up so dramatically, even on my wedding day. Growing up, we went to different schools, made different choices, or at least, I tried to. But Olivia always found a way back into my life, even when she wasn't invited. I used to think it was just normal sisterly competition until it crossed the line. I met Ethan, my fiancé, in an advanced biomedical engineering course. He was not only brilliant but also incredibly kind, and most importantly, completely uninterested in Olivia. Maybe that's why it triggered her even more. Olivia once joked, "If you don't marry him, let me try." I laughed at the time, thinking it was harmless. But looking back now, it wasn't a joke. When we got engaged, I didn't tell Olivia right away. I wanted just one peaceful moment without any drama. But peace never lasts long with her. My mom was the first to share the news with Olivia. That same night, I got a text from Olivia. "Are you sure? He doesn't seem like the right fit for you." I didn't respond, but I felt a knot tighten in my chest. From that point on, Olivia inserted herself into every wedding decision: dress, flowers, music. She even said, "Let's go try on wedding dresses together, just for fun." I started to feel like I was being replaced in the starring role of my own life. I talked to my mom, hoping she would understand and step in. But all she said was, "Olivia's just a little jealous. She'll get over it." I felt completely alone and unprotected. One time, I caught Olivia looking at Ethan during a family dinner. That look, it wasn't a sister's look. And I started to wonder, was I imagining things? Things became clearer when Olivia sent me a link. It was a doctored photo of Ethan with a random woman at a cafe, captioned, "Are you sure he's faithful?" I knew it was fake. Ethan never kept secrets from me. I asked him about the woman. Turns out she was a former colleague, happily married with 2 kids. Everything checked out, nothing suspicious. But I couldn't stop shivering at the thought of Olivia's motives. I decided to limit contact with Olivia before the wedding. I didn't include her in the bridal party, and I knew that would start a war. But I had to protect myself, no matter the cost. I thought things would finally calm down once she was excluded from the planning. But a week later, she showed up at my door with a fake smile. "I came to help you prepare for the wedding," she said, as if she hadn't been shut out. I politely but firmly said no. Still, Olivia kept pushing, asking about the dress, the cake, the guest list. She always said, "If you're too tired, let me take care of it." I started locking doors, even at home. One day I noticed my lingerie had been tampered with. I began to feel unsafe. I installed security cameras in the house. It turned out to be a wise decision. Then one day, I caught Olivia in front of the mirror, trying on my wedding dress. She spun around, smiled, and whispered, "This color doesn't suit you. Let me take it instead." I froze. This wasn't jealousy anymore, this was obsession. I told Ethan, and he stayed calm. "Don't worry, I'll always be here," he said, but I could see the fear in his eyes too. We decided not to tell Olivia the exact time of the ceremony. Olivia started calling my friends, pretending to be me, asking for guest information. She even texted the makeup artist and booked an appointment at the same time as mine. It was starting to feel less like a wedding and more like a psychological thriller. A week before the wedding, I found another wedding dress hidden in my mom's car trunk. It was almost identical to mine, just a few minor differences. I confronted my mom. She said nothing, but the look in her eyes felt like complicity. Ethan suggested we hire private security for the wedding day. I agreed immediately. It was the first time I realized I was actually afraid of my own sister. We even came up with a secret code word, just in case something went wrong that day. I sent Olivia one final message, making it clear she was not invited. She replied with just one sentence, "You'll regret pushing me away." I took a screenshot and forwarded it to my lawyer, just in case things went south. The wedding day came. It was a gentle morning, warm sunshine, and a light breeze. I tried to stay calm. But deep down, I had this strange, uneasy feeling, like something bad was looming. As the makeup artist arrived, my phone rang. Unknown number. I picked up, no one spoke. A moment later, one of the wedding staff informed me that a bride was demanding to enter the bridal suite. I froze, because I was already in the bridal suite. I pulled up the security camera feed and saw Olivia at the side gate, wearing a different white wedding dress. She was telling security that I had a stomach ache, and she had stepped out for fresh air. Luckily, the staff had been briefed and didn't let her in. I immediately called Ethan and the event coordinator. Plan B, now. We moved the entire ceremony indoors and restricted all entrances. Olivia remained outside, pleading, screaming that she was the real bride. My mother was in the parking lot too, seemingly trying to convince security to let her in. I watched from the upstairs window, a mix of horror and pity in my chest. I never thought I'd witness my own mother participating in my sister's bizarre delusion. Security ended up calling the police when Olivia began shoving people and banging on doors. I stepped away from the window and sat at the vanity, hands trembling. Ethan came in, knelt beside me, held my hand and said, "If you want, we can call this whole thing off right now." I shook my head. I wasn't going to let anyone steal this day from me. When the police arrived, Olivia was escorted off the property. But she kept screaming vile things. "He doesn't love you, you're being lied to." I squeezed Ethan's hand tightly. His eyes were only on me, steady, unwavering. The ceremony still went on, even though I had to force a smile through the chaos. Inside, everything felt untouched by the storm happening outside. All I wanted was for it to be over, so I could begin a new chapter. But then, during the reception, a relative approached me awkwardly. "There's a girl outside, says she's your sister." She handed me these papers. I opened them. It was a stack of printed fake messages, supposedly between Ethan and another woman, full of romantic and sexual content. The grammar was off, the timestamps didn't add up, the tone didn't match Ethan at all. Still, anyone unaware of the context could be easily fooled. My hands shook. Ethan's face turned red with anger. We called the police again. This was no longer just a family issue, it was harassment and defamation. The officers confirmed they had seen Olivia lurking on the edge of the venue, avoiding the main cameras. They collected the papers, filed a report, and opened a formal investigation. I returned to the reception, facing whispers and awkward glances. Some guests began murmuring. The drama had crept into the room. I stood up, took the microphone, and addressed everyone. Yes, I have a twin sister. But today, I finally understand just how different we truly are. The room fell silent, and then broke into applause, a small wave of support. Ethan stood and embraced me, and in that moment, I knew I'd done the right thing. Later that night, after we got home, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. It was my mother, dozens of missed calls and long texts that read like accusations. I didn't read them. I was exhausted, and my wedding night wasn't for poison. The next morning, I received an email from Olivia's lawyer, not mine. It contained a warning. My client denies all allegations of harassment and demands that these false statements cease immediately. I read it over and over again, stunned. My sister was trying to sue me. Ethan told me to stay calm. He had already saved all the security footage, messages, and police reports. We sat down and documented everything, every disturbing detail. I never imagined I'd need to treat my wedding like a criminal case. That afternoon, my mother called the landline, since I had blocked her cell. Her voice was full of blame. "Haven't you humiliated Olivia enough in front of everyone?" I stayed silent for a few seconds, then answered, "I chose to protect myself." She didn't stop. She called me selfish, cold, heartless. And then she said something I'll never forget. "She may be wrong, but she's still your sister. You have no heart." I hung up. My hand was ice cold, like something had clamped around my chest. Ethan pulled me into his arms. "Don't let them twist your emotions anymore," he whispered. I nodded, but inside I felt frozen. My own mother now saw me as the outsider. I wondered, had she ever truly been on my side all these years? A week later, Olivia was summoned by the police for investigation over the fabricated messages. I thought she'd deny everything, but instead she cried and blamed me. She said I had taken her whole life, so getting it back was only fair. I wasn't angry anymore. I was scared. Scared of a person who could twist the truth so completely, they started to believe it. My lawyer immediately filed for a restraining order. I didn't hesitate for a second. The court quickly approved the order. Olivia was prohibited from coming within 200 feet of me or Ethan. When the papers were delivered to my mother's house, she called me. This time, she was crying. "Do you really want to turn your sister into your enemy for life?" she asked, her voice trembling. I didn't answer, because deep down I knew I didn't want us to be enemies. But I couldn't keep being the victim, just to preserve a relationship that had rotted long ago. Just 1 week after the restraining order was in effect, Olivia tried to approach Ethan again. She called his office, used a fake name, and claimed to be a client needing consultation. The secretary recognized the familiar voice, alerted Ethan, and he called the police immediately. Police confirmed Olivia had violated the court order. They arrived at Ethan's workplace to file a second violation report. This time, it wasn't just a warning. Criminal charges were a real possibility. That night, my father called. His voice was lower than usual, no longer neutral. "Sweetheart, I need to hear the whole story." I told him everything, from Olivia's stare in the mirror to the wedding dress hidden in Mom's car. He was silent for a long time afterward. "I'm sorry I didn't take your side sooner," he said. He admitted my mother had always defended Olivia, since childhood, because she was the sensitive one, because she cried more. "And you were always strong, independent, so we thought you'd be fine," he added. I broke down. Being strong doesn't mean you don't need protection. For the first time, I felt like an adult finally understood me. 2 days later, my dad sent me an old folder from my college days. Inside were printed emails from former classmates, accusing Olivia of impersonating me to flirt with my boyfriend back then. My hands shook as I read them. So that's why those old breakups and misunderstandings had happened. My sister had been behind them all along. Dad said, "I kept these, but I never told you because your mom told me not to." I asked, "Why stay silent for so long when I was hurting for years?" He answered quietly, "Because I was a coward, until now." That night, I sat in my room holding the old documents, crying nonstop. Not from pain, but from the bitterness of finally seeing all the broken pieces of my past come together. I started drafting a formal complaint against Olivia, this time not just for what she did recently, but for everything she had buried for years. I officially filed with the court, attaching all the evidence my father had provided. My lawyer requested additional witnesses and suggested calling my mother to testify. She refused firmly. "I will not betray my daughter." It hurt, but I wasn't surprised. I knew I wasn't the daughter she was referring to. Ethan hugged me and said, "We don't need anyone else, just the truth and each other." I nodded. This time I wouldn't back down. The court approved a hearing, citing the severity and repeated nature of the offenses. Olivia's lawyer requested the matter be moved to family mediation. But my side firmly declined. This was no longer a family issue. It was about safety and dignity. On the first day in court, I wore a black blazer and a long skirt, looking composed but resolute. Olivia showed up pale, heavily made up, her eyes vacant. For the first time, I didn't see a sister. I saw a stranger. My lawyer presented the timeline, security footage, staff testimonies. The strongest piece of evidence was the audio recording of Olivia using a fake name to reach Ethan. The opposing side couldn't deny it. The voice, the tone, everything matched. The judge asked Olivia to speak. She stood up, voice shaking. "I don't know why everyone's turning me into a monster. I just didn't want to lose her." Tears fell down her cheeks, but her fists were clenched tight, like she was hiding rage beneath the surface. I wanted to feel sympathy, but I couldn't. Not after everything she had done, destroyed, defamed, and stolen from me. I lifted my chin and looked straight at the judge. "I choose truth, not misplaced compassion." The judge announced there would be a follow-up hearing in 2 weeks to complete the investigation of her violations. As we exited the courthouse, I saw my mother outside, avoiding my gaze, holding Olivia's hand tightly. Ethan gave my hand a gentle squeeze, and I knew I was walking the right path, even if it was a lonely one. A week before the second hearing, I got a call from the building manager at Ethan's office. Someone had sent an anonymous package to his workplace. Inside was a wedding album of me and Olivia. But in every photo, Olivia had cut out my face and glued hers in its place. Ethan stared in silence. "This isn't jealousy anymore. This is a delusional disorder," he said. I immediately sent the package to my lawyer. This would be crucial evidence of the escalating obsession. Police opened an additional case for harassment and invasion of privacy. Finally, my mother called. But not to apologize. She screamed into the phone, "You really want to throw your sister in jail? You're cruel." I was speechless. My chest felt like it was being crushed, but I couldn't back down anymore. I just said one sentence. "I don't want her to go to jail, I just want to be free." There was silence on the other end, then the line went dead. For the first time, I felt like I had broken free from an invisible chain. On the day of the final hearing, Olivia didn't show up on time. Her lawyer couldn't reach her either. The court delayed proceedings for 30 minutes, and then Olivia walked in, her hair a mess, eyes red and puffy. She stood before the court, no more tears, no more lies. She looked at me and said, "I don't want to live like this anymore. I just don't know who I am if I'm not you." The courtroom was dead silent. A quiet sigh, and then a soft sob from the gallery. It was my mother. The judge acknowledged her statement, but firmly added, "Love cannot replace responsibility." The court sentenced Olivia to 6 months of probation, 18 months of mandatory therapy, and extended the restraining order for 5 more years. She was also ordered to cover all legal costs and pay compensation for the emotional and reputational damage to both me and Ethan. When the hearing ended, I stood up and walked out without looking back. I didn't want to see my mother. I didn't want to see Olivia. Not out of hatred, just because I had let go. Ethan took my hand and we walked out the door, like we were stepping into a new life. After the trial, Ethan and I spent a week in the Colorado mountains, somewhere with no cell signal. We held hands, walked through pine forests, and breathed in the peace that had been stolen from us for so long. I learned to trust the present again, without constantly bracing for the past. When we got back, I received a message from my dad. "Want to come over for dinner? I have something I'd like to show you." I said yes, for the first time in months, walking into his house without fear. Dinner was simple pumpkin soup, my childhood favorite. Afterward, my dad brought out an old wooden box covered in dust. "These are things I kept from when you and Olivia were in college," he said, placing it in front of me. Inside were letters, photos, and a small journal. I opened it. Olivia's handwriting, neat, emotional. The first line stunned me. "I wish I could be Rachel just for one day." I kept flipping through. Each page was a wound, an obsession, of always being compared, left behind, invisible. One line read, "If she disappeared, would anyone notice I'm someone else?" I felt a chill down my spine. Suddenly, all her strange behavior made terrifying sense. It wasn't just jealousy, it was a total loss of identity. I closed the journal, tears spilling out uncontrollably. Not because I forgave her, but because, for the first time, I saw Olivia for who she truly was. A child who never grew up, trapped in her sister's shadow. Dad placed a hand on my shoulder. "I failed her by not helping sooner, and I failed you even more by making you carry it all." I squeezed his hand, no longer angry, just quiet inside. That night, I brought the journal home and locked it in a drawer. Not to hold on to it, but to remind myself, some wounds aren't meant to be erased. They just need to be left in peace. 2 months after the trial, Ethan and I slowly returned to a normal life. We moved to a new house in the suburbs, where no one knew our messy past. Each morning, I woke up feeling like I was learning how to live again, starting from zero. I kept writing in my journal. But now, not to remember what I lost, rather, to nurture what I have. Each page became a promise to myself. I will no longer live in fear. I won't let someone else's darkness block my own light. One day, I received a nameless postcard. It read, "I truly hope you're happy, I'm trying." No signature, but I knew exactly who it was from. I didn't know if it was genuine or just a silent goodbye, but for the first time, I didn't feel angry anymore. I placed the postcard on my bookshelf, between a romance novel and a tiny pot of lavender. Not to remember Olivia, but to remember the lesson. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means no longer letting it control you. A wound is just one part of the story, not the whole story. My mother still hasn't reached out, and I'm no longer waiting. My dad visits sometimes on weekends, bringing apple pie and old stories. We laugh softly, fall into longer silences. But in those silences, I find peace. For our first wedding anniversary, Ethan took me back to the beach where he proposed. We sat on the sand, holding hands, saying nothing, because nothing needed to be said. I rested my head on his shoulder and smiled. For the first time, I finally feel free. I'm no longer the older sister who always had to be strong. No longer someone else's victim. I am myself. A woman who walked through pain and came out whole. And if anyone asks, I'll simply say, I didn't win, I just chose not to lose anymore. This story doesn't end with a tearful reunion or a heartfelt embrace. It ends with truth, clarity, and a quiet door opening to whatever comes next. Because some relationships don't need saving, they just need to be let go of, so we can move forward, gently. If you've ever been hurt by your own family, you're not alone. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. You have the right to set boundaries, even with those who share your blood. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss more true stories that help you grow stronger and remind you that your voice matters.